So where are we going today, Mr. Boo?
Today we're going in search of some of the world's most expensive villas.
Saint-Jean, Cap Ferrat. Hi, welcome back to me and Mon Ami, and a very happy new year to everyone. I hope you had a splendiferous Christmas. We had an absolutely stinking one in which we spent the whole time in bed. Sick, I would point out, sick with cold. Mr. Boo doing coughing effect just to verify this fact. But anyway, we are back behind the wheel of our little Citroen Ami, and we are ready for more adventures in 2024. And today we've got a rather different adventure, because today we are going to try and take you to quite literally some of the world's most expensive villas, which are very close to VILLEFRANCHE. In fact, some of them are in VILLEFRANCHE. And we're going to try, as well as show you some of these insane places, we're going to try and make sense of what is going on with the property market at the high end here, because villas are exchanging hands for hundreds of millions of euros, and yet many of the villas are of course seized by the French government because they are deemed to be the property of Russians connected to Vladimir Putin. So today we're going to try and, well, make sense of just what is going on, who's doing the buying, who's doing the selling, and well, is there more to it than it seems? Now, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you'll know that big villas are not something we generally cover. We tend to head for the hills, we tend to head for little restaurants and small villages and all of that stuff. But of course, you know, it is impossible to ignore the fact that the French Riviera, the strip of land that basically takes you from Marseille down here to Menton on the Italian border, encompassing Monaco, is amongst the most ludicrously overpriced in terms of real estate anywhere on the planet, and has been so for the best part of a century. And we're going to begin our little exploration of the whys, the wherefores, and what's likely to come next by taking you onto what is probably one of the most expensive strips of land. That's a bit of a good turn. In the whole of the world, because this we are entering now is the peninsula. Is it a peninsula, Mr. Boo?
It is indeed a peninsula.
The peninsula of Saint-Jean, Cap Ferrat. Now, it's hard to believe, but really, little over a century ago, this was farmland.
It was indeed, back when you were a lad.
When I were a lad, it were farmland. There were pits, there were Ken Dodd going down the Brass Butty mine, whatever he used to eat. That's not true, but it was farmland, and it was a tiny fishing village, until a man, well, he was a bit dodgy. He was the king of Belgium. He made a fortune on slavery in the Belgian Congo, and he came here and he decided to build an incredible villa on the top here. Now, what was the name of that villa, Mr. Boo?
The name of the villa was Les Cèdres.
Les Cèdres. And Les Cèdres is still here, isn't it?
It is indeed.
It is still one of the most significant villas on Cap Ferrat, and we're going to go past it and hopefully manage to show you something of it from above. Now, interestingly, Les Cèdres is owned, I think, by a Ukrainian gentleman.
It certainly is.
So, I told you this is going to get complicated. This villa is owned by a Ukrainian supermarket magnate who has been spending literally tens, if not hundreds of millions, renovating it, doing stuff to the garden, because it is one of the biggest private gardens on the whole of Saint-Jean Cap Ferrat. But if we carry on up here, I think we will pass the gate. But here we go. There you can see all the works taking place. Now, these walls stretch right round the outside of the grounds of Les Cèdres. Now, I think this is the villa which, when the King of Belgium had it, he kept his mistress in another house, didn't he?
He did.
And
Beatrice.
Beatrice. She was down on the beach at Plage de Passable, wasn't she?
In Villa Diana.
Villa Diana, you do?
No, Villa Radiana.
Radiana. I'm going to Diana, something quite different. She was in a tunnel in Paris.
Voila.
But this is the incredible Les Cèdres. Now, we've been doing a bit of digging as to how much this man paid for this, and as far as we can gather, this is what it cost. But the cost of maintaining it, the cost of the upkeep of the grounds, and that's true of all of these huge villas behind these walls here on Carpuride, the cost of maintenance is gargantuan.
Yes.
Often we're talking a staff of 20, 30, 40, you could have 10 gardeners.
Yeah, easy.
And don't forget, folks, most of the people who own these houses maybe come 3 weeks a year. It's a bit like having a static caravan in Flamborough, except a bit more expensive to run. In fact, you probably get more use out of your static caravan. But of course, you know, there are more than one reason why people buy vast, gargantuan, overpriced holiday homes. And of course, one of those reasons is to move money, isn't it?
Oh, that's a good place to pop some money down.
Now, I'm reliably informed by some of our local estate agents that the days of Russian oligarchs turning up with suitcases of money have long gone. They have accounts in Monaco.
Of course
they don't
they do.
need to carry it around. And you know, it is impossible to ignore the fact that in the noughties, I think in about 2007, 2008, Monaco had the year of the Russian. They made a massive play to get more and more Russian money into private banking there, into their investment funds, and indeed Prince Albert of Monaco, well, he was pictured on holiday with Vladimir Putin, I think riding his horse with his top off. Well, Vlad was. He likes doing that, doesn't he? You can see some work going on another villa, and that's the other thing, the work never ends, does it?
The work never ends.
There is never a time when there is not a giant crane on this peninsula. Now, it is an absolutely beautiful peninsula. It is, some of the houses here have views that TripAdvisor would describe as to die for, wouldn't they? To die for. And of course, they've also got quite gargantuan security. But over the last 18 months, it is thought that perhaps in excess of 100 villas on this peninsula have been seized. It may not be that many, nobody knows the exact figure. And of course, nobody really knows what the French government are going to do, because they're in legal dispute with some of the owners, and indeed some of the other owners who've not had their assets seized have decided to cash their rubles in, haven't they?
Cash in. Ship out.
Cash in, ship out. Which means there's been an awful lot of property on the market at the high end. Now, who's been buying it? Because presumably the Russians are not buying it.
The Russians are not buying it.
Right, so who is?
Well, a huge part of it, of the new market, is the Americans.
So the Americans are back. Now, what was the villa that sold recently?
Villa Maryland.
Villa Maryland. And who previously owned that?
Previously, it was owned by Mr. Paul Allen.
Who was Microsoft, wasn't he?
He was Bill Gates' second hand.
Bill Gates' second hand. And it was a very sad story because he got cancer and no amount of money could save him. So Maryland, I guess, lay empty for maybe a few years, really, while they tried to sell it.
Yep.
Maybe his wife still, or relatives still used it.
They were still using it, but it sold this summer for a reported 100 million euros.
100 million? I thought it was 130 million.
and I believe it was 100 million euros.
100 million, and who bought it?
It was a American billionaire.
That's handy.
He is a New Yorker, an investment banker from New York.
Investment banker. Now, what's kind of interesting about Carpuride is that even into the sort of 80s, early 90s, but certainly into the 80s, I mean, property was not cheap, but the likes of Andrew Lloyd Webber could afford to buy a villa here.
Indeed.
But I think even Lloyd Webber eventually decided this was too expensive and shipped out and bought something, I think, more modest somewhere else. And of course, there is also a sort of sister peninsula to Cap Ferrat, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Cap d'Antibes.
Cap d'Antibes. Would you say Cap d'Antibes is a little bit cheaper?
No. I'd say they're pretty comparable.
Yeah. I always think Cap Ferrat looks a bit flashier than Cap d'Antibes, if I'm honest.
I agree.
but you know, we shan't be buying any of those villas soon, so it probably won't greatly affect us. But you know, on Cap d'Antibes, as well as having the wonderful Grand Hotel de Cap like we have here, you've also, of course, Mr. Abramovich has got his villa, which I think has been seized, hasn't it? And his is the old villa that was owned by the Duke of Windsor.
Yes, that's true.
When the abdication crisis came, and he came down here, and him and Mrs. Simpson of the Strand, I made that up. They built a bit of, well, they decorated a villa. I'm led to believe that Mr. Abramovich gutted it, that really only the exterior is there. And incredibly, I think the hundreds of millions that were spent, he also had a staggering 200 different contractors working on it.
Couldn't make up his mind.
Well, that was just for the marble in the bathroom, I think, probably.
The other big sale on Cap d'Antibes this year was Chateau de la Garoupe.
Oh yes.
Which was seized previously and sold this year to a Ukrainian, a man who has this little app thing called WhatsApp.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Have you heard of that? Yes. He's bought that.
Wow. Now, is the property market here so ridiculously overinflated just because of desirability and because the Russians and the Americans have always wanted to come, or is there something else at play?
Well, our proximity to Monaco is a huge part of it.
Yeah, and why does that impact?
Because nobody wants to live in Monaco.
You heard it here first, folks.
I mean, you might say you live in Monaco, you might have an apartment in Monaco, you might have a big apartment in Monaco, but it's still not going to be very big.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't wish to insinuate that not all Monegasques live in Monaco.
Never, we would never say that.
But certainly some of them have second homes just outside Monaco, and many of those are on Cap Ferrat and Aires and VILLEFRANCHE. You know, it is a little known fact that most Monegasques, even the multi-millionaire types, live in very small, pokey apartments. You need to have serious money, billionaire money, millionaire money won't cut it to be able to get a really big apartment in Monaco.
Yes.
With a sea view. And Monaco is, of course, incredibly overcrowded. So you can see why these places out here with this incredible view across the bay would be tempting. And of course they offer the high walls and the security cameras and all the bits that they seem to need, these very rich people. Now, of course, as you come down here, just above us here is one of the most incredible villas on the whole of the Cap, which is the Villa Rothchild. Now, unusually, and I think it's just about the only one apart from maybe the Cocteau Villa, the Villa Rothchild is actually something you can go look round, because Madame Rothschild, when she died, left it to the French state. So it's kind of a stately home, and it is an incredible monument to crazy excess. This was a woman who had so much money and so much time, you really felt she didn't know what to do with it. Well, we're now leaving Cap Ferrat, and we're going to take you down into VILLEFRANCHE, because we're going to take you to what is, and certainly was when it was last sold, the most expensive house on the planet.
La belle époque, oh oh. La belle époque, oh oh. La belle époque.
A challenge for Elton, this, quite steep. And hopefully on the 360 you'll start to get some images of some of these places. This one on the corner is absolutely beautiful to me. Pure classic Belle Epoque. Looks like they've got the painters in, doesn't it? The windows are open. That's a nice blanket you've got there, Mr. Boo, for Twiggy.
Well, it was from our subscriber Sissy, wasn't it, Twigs?
She sent it all the way from America.
She sent it from America. It says Twiggy on it, and it's got pictures of chihuahuas.
It's so lovely. So thank you, Cece, for sending us that, and for some of our other presents you've sent us. We had your bauble on our tree, as it were. We were looking at it from our sick beds. But thanks. It's, Twiggy says thank you, don't you, Twigs?
Yes.
It's a very soft blanket. What's this villa called? Leopolda?
Leopolda.
Leopolda. Another one built by the King of Belgium. Another one when he kept his mistress as well, across a bridge, didn't he?
Indeed.
So she had a separate house across a bridge. The wife wouldn't let her in the grounds, apparently. Don't blame her. So here are the main gates of Leopolda.
Made famous in the red shoes.
Made famous in the red shoes. I'm never keen on that colour either. Dirty caramel.
Dirty caramel.
But again, if we can either get the drone or Google Earth over the top of there, we'll give you a shot of the gardens that those gates open onto, because they're quite remarkable. And again, all this are the grounds of Leopolda, on the side of this wall here. And as you come around this corner, you will see the famous Mistress house and the special bridge that he nightly nipped over for a cup of sugar.
He used to go and play cards with her. That was the...
Cards? Is that what they call it?
Yes. The official line.
That's the, I think that's the tradesman's entrance to the Leopolda, so we're still Leopoldering here. That's how big it is. So what was the story behind the world's most expensive villa, Mr. Boo?
Well, back in 2008,
Yeah.
Mr. Prorokov.
Prorokov?
Yes.
God, I got my teeth in.
Mr. Prorokov, he's a nickel magnate.
A nickel magnate?
Yeah, there you go. And he decided to buy La Leopolda from Lily Safra.
Lily Safra, who was married to a banker.
She was married
And there's a
to
very
banker.
mysterious story around her, but we won't go into that. That's for another day.
And he offered a cool 500 million euros.
Yeah.
And at the last minute, because it was 2008 and the crash, he pulled out.
He pulled out because suddenly property prices were plummeting. There was the global financial crisis. And so he pulled out. Now, under French law, what happens if you pull out?
You lose 10%.
10%. Now, 10% of 200 grand is tough.
Yeah.
10% of 500 million. I guess it's all relative though, isn't it? I mean, I'm not going to feel for him particularly. But
Well,
he did lose a cool 50 million on the deal.
Yeah.
And it's currently on sale. We don't really know what the figure is, do we? We're certainly into the hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
Because it was then bought by the L'Oreal heiress. And again, there's another story there. When isn't there a story regarding the super rich? Anyway, now let's head back into Villefranche and to the £45 million house with only 5 bedrooms that's just appeared on the market, because we think we've got to the bottom of why a house that this man restored so lovingly over such a long period of time has suddenly hit the market. So right here by the Princess Grace Memorial. This is not actually where the car went over, by the way. A lot of people think it is, but it was one of her favourite views, so they pulled a memorial. But anyway, over here, if you just look down here, you can just see the top of the 45 million euro house. Now, this house is actually a very historic building because it was originally built by a man called Bernard Voisin. Now, Bernard Voisin, translation neighbour, is the man who built the harbour in Villefranche. He owned the harbour, so he was a very wealthy man, and he built this beautiful house and gardens to overlook his harbour. Now, when he died, I think for many years it sort of fell into disrepair, and then it was bought by a mystery buyer. Now, this guy had to spend an absolute fortune because it is an historic building, so you can't alter any of the dimensions or the proportions, though looking at the estate agent listing, I can't say much of the original interiors survived. But he did do a beautiful job on the outside, and he did a wonderful job on the grounds, which are buried, hidden in these trees here, right next to the Castel, which is the Russian, largely Russian apartment block next door to it. But this house, we did a bit of digging, a bit of investigating, well, Mr. Boo did, and it appears it was bought by a shell company. Now, we're not going to name the guy because we don't want to get sued, but we are fairly certain it belongs to a very prominent Russian banker. Banker, I said. And it appears that in spite of spending a fortune on it, and in spite of the fact that then he couldn't come during COVID, and then he couldn't come because of the war, so I can't think he's had a great deal of fun out of it, he has decided to sell. It originally went on the market, we think, for about 55 million, but then it's popped up again at a mere 45. But our guess, and it is only that, is that this is someone who perhaps wanted to move his rubles before his rubles got him into troubles, and before the villa maybe, you know, seized. But at the minute, it's on the market if you've got a spare 45 million. So that was our whistle-stop tour of the insane villas and property for sale here in Villefranche, Cap-Ferrat, Saint-Jean, etc. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like, please give us a thumbs up, please think about buying us a coffee. If we get enough coffees, we might buy that villa. In the meantime, stay charged, everyone. See you next week. Bye.